Just what do you like about Aaron Rodgers? What do you think he can bring to this football team?
There's a lot. I've gotten to know Aaron outside of football the last couple of years. I mean, you're talking about one of the all-time great quarterbacks and the things he's accomplished in this league. Really enjoyed, obviously getting to know him as the player-coach relationship with the football stuff. Just really excited to have him here. It's going to be a fun journey. I know we're only a couple days in, but he's been awesome.
How's his skill set? Obviously, he's a four-time MVP. He's done
Yeah.
a lot of things in the game, but how does his skill set fit the way that you want to coach offense in 2025?
Well, every year is going to be different. You evolve depending on, obviously who you've got personnel-wise and strategically, things you want to evolve to, and that's a lot of times how roster decisions get made. You see it through offseason acquisitions, free agency, draft. So when you put those strategies in place, like we've evolved every year, if you have to. So a lot of times out of necessity, it really, had a lot of different quarterbacks with a lot of different skill sets. And our job, especially as a coach, is, to play to the strengths of your players. I mean, we have our foundation things that don't change, but whether you lean into certain schemes year after year, you adapt again to the personnel you've got. That's what we try to do. And then ultimately to win games and set guys up for success.
Teryl was talking yesterday about his familiarity with some of the Shanahan concepts.
Yeah.
How much have you been influenced by the Shanahan, some of the things he does, and how do you think that might help aid in Aaron's ability to get on the field and train?
Yeah, it's like a lot of players I've had. I mean, it just goes back to when, I've been fortunate. I've been in a lot of different systems, and even as a defensive coach, you're learning terminology from defensive coordinators and, when you get into the league and you're studying guys on the other side of the ball. And then I've had some great mentors and, things that go back, even predate. You talk about the Cowher era, predates Ben with Mike Mularkey and then Ken Wisenhunt. So the history and different philosophies. And when I got to Atlanta, Matt Ryan's first coordinator was Mike Mularkey. So I knew some of the terms. It just helps you as you're trying to problem solve and plays they've run in the past. Like you've got some familiarity with it. So a little bit with Aaron, people change. I mean, Matt changed when Matt LaFleur and I were together in 18, and he goes to Green Bay. I changed some terms. I changed some terms. I became coordinator. Whether you want to call plays a little bit different, shorten calls, or whatever it is that you're trying to problem solve, but you have reference points, and that helps. And obviously knowing Todd Downing, who Aaron was with last year with the Jets, you change. Like I've changed when I got here. I mean, you always try to empower people and try to improve as a coach. You hire, staff changes. You try to, if there's a better way to call something or whatever, same thing, you pick players' brains. I mean, you never stop learning. I mean, I just think of guys, it's not always the starter. Like, I really appreciated Kyle Allen. He was a guy that had been in different systems. You pick his brain, how they did something at a place he'd been, and that's how you learn. And learn what other people are doing or something that may help you. So it's no different with Aaron.
Arthur, you just mentioned empowering players. I know it's a while until you get on the field in a game situation, but how much freedom do you anticipate Aaron having to be able to change the play call?
Yeah, I know that's a hot button issue here. It's the first place I've ever been in the NFL. Like, so you get a little of the history of a place, and again, every quarterback's different. Every offensive scheme is different. And again, I've never had the privilege of working with Ben, and you're talking about a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he was here for a long time, and he's a gold jacket player, and I'm not sure, I wasn't here, how he did things. So, sometimes when you're answering a question, that may be the reference point. A lot of times last year, I'd like every quarterback I've had, audible is such a vague term. So, not to get too deep in the weeds here with the scheme, but you're talking about we've got multiple things that have evolved every year, depending who the quarterback is. And just like we did last year, and it didn't change, with Justin or Russ, and the way we tried to evolve, it didn't change, those elements, whether we're talking about cans, checks, alerts, signals. You want to put those in audibles, great. But we never fundamentally changed. I mean, we obviously schematically shifted to try to play a little bit different with Justin and with Russ, but the operation never changed. So whatever fantastical narrative was that we're just calling plays to the line, I don't know the history reference. I just know what we did in Pittsburgh in 24, and that didn't. Our issue at the end of the year wasn't good enough, and as a leader, you take accountability, and that's on you. But there's multiple issues, and we got to play our best at the end of the year. We're rolling. We didn't. And that's where you got to be accountable as a leader. And so obviously we'll have a different setup this year, roster-wise. Obviously new players, DK, Aaron, some of the other guys we brought in, Gainwell, drafted Caleb. So every year's a different journey, and it's exciting to have Aaron here and to get to work with him.
You guys make calls. You guys make calls on Jonas Smith and Kyle Pitts. What sort of input do you have in those calls?
Yeah, that's a better question for Omar and Mike. But just I can tell you because I've been in both roles, and every building's different. You know, you talk about every building's set up different, how they want to do personnel transactions. Sometimes, you know, you get a list of guys and you give your opinion, and my job is to coach the guys that are here. And so different from player to player, but ultimately that's you know, Omar and Mike, and those are those decisions, and that's a better question for them.
Have you picked Matt LaFleur's brain about what it's like to coach Aaron at all?
Yeah, I talked to a lot of people, just as Aaron's probably talked to a lot of people too. I mean, that's pretty normal. You know, any player you've had. I mean, same thing with DK. You know, I had A.J. Brown. You know, they were good buddies and college teammates, and he'd done his homework. I'd done my homework. It's why you need to do it on the front end when you're studying the draft and know the league. And sure, but again, you know, take opinions from everybody. But you know, circumstances change, and you know, when you get till you really get to know somebody, and we'll spend a ton of time together, and I'm looking forward to it.
What do you think he does well to go at this age of his career, based on what you see?
Well, you know, you really look at in the last year. I mean, the guy's throwing the ball at an extremely high level. I mean, you talk about one of the greatest passers in the history of this game. I mean, not many guys have thrown the football like Aaron Rodgers, and obviously he's still doing that at a high level. I believe he said something similar yesterday. You know, again, where you have a guy like I had Matt Ryan in his career. Matt, as a younger player, was a little bit different. You know, Aaron's, you know, sure, the way he sees the game is different than he was when he was 25 to being in his, you know, early 40s. But he's still throwing the ball at a high level.
When you talk about offensive identity, last year you guys ran the ball fourth most, he threw the ball second. So how do you marry?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
You guys ran the ball the fourth most, you had the second most pass attempts. So how do you marry together, you know, pass happy kind of quarterbacks with the run heavy coordinator?
Again, those are things. I mean, we end up having to throw it a lot more at the end of the year. I mean, that's what happens when you're down, and you know, and you're getting into some no huddle. You know, things that were issues last year. You know, some of the untimely turnovers that cost you. You know, big momentum swings in games, and you get more plays in because you're going a little, you know, more hurry up, and so you know that's a little bit different. But you know, again, we played with a lot of different O-linemen early in the year. You know, some things you're trying to guys get their feet wet, and so we did run a little bit more. You'd love to be more balanced. You're not obvious, depending on how you want to attack this defense, where you think their strengths, weaknesses are. I mean, that's the game. It's played every Sunday. You know, and obviously as your roster evolves, I mean, obviously we didn't bring Aaron in here and sign DK for all that money to go run the wishbone. So, you know, you try to play to the strengths of your team.
What's it been like working with DK Metcalf so far?
It's been great. I mean, you talk about a guy that's, you know, I've watched him afar. I mean, he's in phenomenal shape. I mean, he's a physical wideout. Can bring an explosive element to our offense is what we're looking for. You know, we don't want to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust. There's ways to do it, whether in the run game and obviously the passing game. So we're excited to have DK here.
Based on this current roster on offense, what would you expect from a scoring standpoint? How much do you believe that this offensive unit can improve the score?
Well, I mean, at one point, I think we were middle part of the year. We had a 8-game stretch where we were damn near 30 points a game. I mean, obviously, we weren't good enough at the end of the year. So, you want to be explosive. You want to be the best offense in the league. That's your goal. And you know, obviously on Sunday, you know, you win 17-16. You know, you get the win, but you're chasing more. So to put a number on it, I mean, we're trying to be the best version, and we want to be the most explosive offense in the league, and we got a lot of work to do. But that's the goal every week. I mean, I'm not going to feel great if we lose a game 42-35 and we have 500 yards. That's not wired that way. I'm not one of those guys that, you know, giddy about stats. Oh, we did our job. No, it's a team game. It's the ultimate team game. We want to be explosive. Every year we got to improve as an offense, and it'll be a long journey during the season.
So you mentioned the offensive line a second ago. Where do you see them at this point in the year versus where they were a year ago? Do you get the sense that they are gelling more early on because they have more experience at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that experience of those guys, those young guys, Zach, Mason, Spencer, you know, we were playing when we had a different lineup damn near every week early on, and you know, we had injuries. It was just one of those years. You'd love to have the same 5 for every game. that helps. I mean, they're not rookies anymore. You know, getting Troy back, he played a game. But it helps. Those guys have been around each other. That's the position we've had the least amount of turnover, and that's what you expect. So when those guys should be further along when we get to Latrobe, and obviously early in the year, which allows you to do a lot more too.
Have you ever been in a situation where new quarterback, new number one receiver, potentially a running back is going to get a lot of carries, and how do you go about trying to piece that all together? How big of a challenge is that?
That's the situation in front of us. You know, I mean, again, I loved working with Naj and appreciated and what Russ and Justin did and George, but that's just the life that we're in right now in the NFL. There's turnover. I mean, it didn't happen that way in terms of all the acquisitions, but just, you know, in 19, I mean, it happened in the early part of the year with Tannehill. We had drafted A.J. Brown. I mean, Derek the year before, you know, he'd been there and he kind of got going in the year, but, you know, Deion Lewis was playing in front of him, and so it felt like you had 3 new, and it was my first year calling it. In Atlanta, you know, every year we had a different starting quarterback, Matt Ryan to Marcus to Dez, and then ended up playing Heineke a little bit. Drafted young guys, so done it before. That's our situation, and we're excited about it.
Hey, given the competition in the backfield, how is Jalen Warren's role evolving, and is he a clear-cut RB1 in your offense right now?
We got a lot of weapons back there. You know, they all got different skill sets, explosive players. I mean, they're in a little different way. Like, you know, just talking about, you know, Caleb, different style player than Jalen. And then, you know, we added Gainwell. There's some depth in that room. So it'll work itself out. You know, we've got a lot of weapons back there, and then how we deploy them, and that's what we'll get into Latrobe. And then sometimes if injuries happen, some guy may have to carry the load a little bit heavier one week or the other. But we're really excited about that room.
Okay, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, not have a lot. Does that change much when you guys do this early in the year?
No, we're going to keep preparing and moving ahead. You know, we expect him back at some point, and he'll get caught up as fast. He'll be in great shape like he always is. So no worries. I think it's actually a great opportunity for young guys to get more reps and see what they can do in good-on-good competition.
Who are you interested in seeing most in that regard?
And which
The young guys.
all of them. I want to see all these young guys you have. We're going to make sure they get plenty of reps because, you know, we're not going to overdo Cam at this time of year. So you'll see a lot of Derek, a lot of YA. You'll see a lot of Jack. And so it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good offseason. It's been a good offseason so far, but it's going to be good. It's been really good to get those guys a lot of reps.
Are you still talking with TJ or staying in touch with him even though he's not physically here?
Yeah, we always do. But, I mean, like, you know, he's handling his business. He's doing his thing. And you know, we've touched base a few times this summer, but it's not about the football stuff. I'm just seeing how he's doing, how his family's doing, new baby, all that good stuff. So, you know, when TJ shows up, he'll be ready to go.
Let me ask you about your new quarterback. You game played against him recently, Rodgers.
Uh-huh.
What kind of quarterback is he?
Well, he's a pain in the ass because he can get rid of the ball quickly if you're bringing pressure. He knows if you're not bringing pressure that he can hold it and he can wait for some things to develop. Really sharp. I remember, you know, going against him when I was in Detroit for 4 years. It was, you know, all the time, and it's always a challenge. He's a great player in terms of he can spin the ball, he can get it, he knows who to get it to, and so he always presents challenges that way.
You said that you game played him against him in Detroit. You obviously game played against him last year. How much has his game changed over that time?
I think the only thing that's probably really changed is he's not running as much in terms of trying to get away. When he was younger, you could see him. You would be scared to play some you know, man under defenses because he'd get out of the pocket and he could beat you with his legs. Probably not as much. He's probably more selective in terms of running that way. But in terms of, I don't see any drop off in terms of accuracy, in terms of ball speed, in terms of how he spins it.
Queen and some other guys were talking about shoring up some schematic things that maybe went wrong at the end of last season. What kinds of things are you working on this spring, summer to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well, yeah, we're doing we're going to try to do some different things to make sure we have the bodies in the right place to to help ourselves because obviously we didn't like how we finished last year. Obviously, the drafting of the big guys up front is also a testament that what we needed to do. We need to get a little bit bigger and younger up front. And so we're going to try to put all those things together to be more solid down the stretch and be better. You know, we had a Baltimore problem last year. I mean, there's no other way to get around it. They ran the ball down our throats, and we have to fix that if we want to contend in this division.
Tia, you guys had a pretty good history against them prior to that game. The statistics were way out of whack for what they usually are. What do you attribute that to?
We just got our butts kicked. I mean, you give them credit, and we didn't do a good enough job, and it started with me. And so, the things we looked at and tried to address coming into the offseason was, making some schematic changes that we'll do and making some personnel changes that we did.
How humbling is a performance like that whenever you go up against a rival like that in a playoff game and they're able to impose their will like that? How much does that kind of maybe kind of rethink some things that you were doing before that you want to do different?
Well, it makes you rethink. You hate it because you don't ever want your rival to kick your ass. But I think it makes us better, and that's what rivalries are. They're two good teams usually going at it, and sometimes the other side's going to have an upper hand. And so we have been ahead in that category, and they did some catching up. So it's time for us to adjust and see if we can get back on the right side of things.
Does Peyton have what it takes to be a 3-down inside back?
Absolutely.
What about his game makes you think that? I know he wasn't known maybe for run defense in college. But
I think his willingness to learn and understand the areas that he was a little deficient in terms of coming downhill and taking on blocks. He didn't really have to do that much in college, and he's gotten better at that he got better at it as the year went on last year, and he knows that's an area to work on. So I think you have a really conscientious player who has the work ethic and the drive to do it. He'll get it done.
Teryl, with Deacon not being here, what does this do for Nick? Is this an invaluable opportunity?
It is. It allows the younger guys to get more work, more reps, and actually, against the good guys, so to speak, the first teamers, and it helps. I think it helps everybody because now you have an opportunity to be an every down guy, maybe not just a substitute on third down or something like that. So you get first and second down reps, you get situational football, you get all the things, and it should help you grow as a player.
It's a very different situation that Cole had when he got hurt and now when he gets with the background injury. How does he look to factor in and how is he bounced back from that?
Well, it's been a long bounce back. That was a really bad injury. He's bounced back. He's an unbelievable worker, and so he's getting himself back into football, movements and shape and all those things, and he's going to have to fight his tail off because it is a different room than when he left. But I think he'll be up for the challenge, and we'll just see how that works out at camp and what it takes us. Because the bottom line is whoever are the best players have to be on the field. And if he's one of the best players, then we'll find a way to get him on the field.
Yeah, you were talking about improving schematically in some areas so guys in the right place. How much have you guys put emphasis on working out bunches, doing some bunches or 4x1 formations, things like that?
Well, yeah, those are the things that are trending, Mike. I think that the 4x1 stuff, bunches, and trying to confuse you so you don't get right on the guys right away. Those are things that we're always trying to perfect and get better and see what we can do better at it. And so those are always studies, and really the proof will be, what do we do with it this year? How do we handle it, and do we handle it better than we did last year?
What would your report card be on Sawyer at this point in what he's done so far?
I'm not going to give Jack a whole bunch, but I'll say it's an A. I like Jack. No, he's outstanding. He's got all the football qualities that we like, that we cherish around here, and it'll be really nice. I really want to see him once we get the pads on and how all that stuff translates. But we're in shorts right now. I can give everybody an A at this point. We all get A's at this point.
TA, how have you seen Cam engage with YA and Derek, and how have you seen those guys kind of spark to the leadership that Cam brings?
I think Cam he's an unbelievable leader. He's been here, 30 years? 27 years, I think Cam's been here. But Cam he's great for those guys. He does a lot of really good things. He has people into his home. He takes them under his wing. And it'd be really, I think, not smart for a young guy not to take that leadership when you look at what he's done. And if you just look at what he's done past the age of 30. I mean, that is unbelievable the way he's played. And so that guy has something in his process and what he does is probably pretty valuable to a young guy. And so I think those guys have done a good job.
Have you seen Derek kind of, I know Herbig and Watt were kind of like that. Have you seen Derek kind of emulate a similar kind of mentor?
I don't know. It's kind of early for that right now, but I think you can see that those guys are trying to get some information, trying to soak it up, the good things that he can give to them. And so it's always going to be a work in progress. But I think that those guys are using him. They're using Cam in the right way, and I think Cam is open to giving them anything that he's got, everything that he's got.
What kind of voice has Darius Slay brought to the cornerback room already?
I don't know if he's brought a whole bunch yet, in the sense of, you know, we're just kind of getting together. But I mean, I know Slay, and I know he'll be really good in that room, and what he'll bring in terms of his professionalism and his expectations and the things that he's going to, the things that he does, obviously, that he'll want other guys to be and do what he does. And so he'll bring them along. I think that's going to be, again, a work in progress, and I think that'll really start showing once we get into camp situations and go from there.
So you had the schematic tweaks and adjustments you mentioned. Any of those involved trying to get more splash out of Fitzpatrick? Or are you happy with the center field role?
Well, I think it's a lot of things, but you know I'm not going to tell you the scheme shit, Mike. We always go through this.
Nothing if not persistent.
Absolutely. So, no, there's, you know, we're going to do what we think is best to get our guys in position to make plays.
Do you need him to get his hands on the ball more?
Absolutely, we'd love to. That's his calling card, and you know he hasn't had as much success as we'd like the last couple of years. But I think the way it works, or the way he works, and the way he prepares, those things will come. It's just, you know, he's just had a dry year or so.
Are there any up and comers that you're excited about individually in this unit? Or any position unit that you're excited about on the team?
Well, I'm interested. We've kind of, you know, I really like when I first got in this position. I think one of the areas we wanted to remake was our linebacker, the off-the-ball linebacker core, and I really like the depth and the things that we've done in that group in terms of the people we've added, the guys we've drafted. I think that's a really competitive group now, and it's not like a given, like, hey, this guy's going to make it or that guy's going to make it, or, you know, I mean, at one point it was kind of like, well, we knew who was doing what today. I don't know if we know that standing here today, and so I think I'm excited about that.